Snot Stew, Chapter 6. I learned a lot during the next few days. I learned that the barn where the Burke family lived was called a house. My safe place was called the couch instead of the couch. The round things with long legs were tables, and there were lamps on them where light came from. The Burkes had names for the different rooms in the house, too. My couch was in the living room. They had bedrooms for sleeping, a playroom for watching a machine called a TV, and the kitchen. The kitchen was my favorite place. That's where Mother or Sarah fed me. They had some dry, crunchy stuff that they called cat food. I didn't much care for that. Once a day, Sarah would open a can of real cat food. It tasted... Pages are sticking. It tasted like meat. She would give me some in my bowl. It was good, but not nearly as good as stew. Things went pretty well in the Burke's house. I liked my girl named Sarah. She was mine because I was hers. She called me her cat. She would pet me and scratch me behind my ears. She talked to me real softly and was never mean to me. It made me purr and feel warm and toasty inside. Toby belonged to the boy named Ben. He and Toby liked to play. Ben would drag a string across the floor. Toby would pretend it was a mouse and sneak up, then pounce on it. Ben would laugh and grab Toby and playfully rub his fur the wrong way. Toby would arch his back up, way up, like he was really mad. He'd kind of pounce sideways, like he was going to get Ben. They would roughhouse and play for hours and hours. Besides getting petted and rubbed and fed cat food and watching Toby and his boy play rough boy games, I learned that there were some rules around the place. Mother didn't like us to climb up on her table in the kitchen to look at the plates. I guess she didn't want anybody looking at her plates except people things. If we did, she would yell at us and swat at us with her dish towel. Daddy didn't like us to sharpen our claws on the couch or chair or rug. But where's a cat supposed to sharpen his claws if not on stuff like that? Anyway, if we did, he would yell at us in his loudest, deepest voice. Once he even swatted Toby with a newspaper. That scared me so much I hid in my safe place under the couch for one whole night. There were also some things on shelves in the living room that Mother called trinkets. There were glass birds and statues of people dancing and a pink glass bowl. It had flowers and stems carved into the side of the glass. One day, Mother found us up there. We were just looking, but she started yelling and screaming and calling us all sorts of bad names. I took off for my safe place. She chased Toby all around the living room until he finally ran under the couch where I was. He was all puffed up and breathing hard, only he didn't want me to know how scared he had been. "She isn't so tough," he said, slicking his fur down with his rough tongue. "She isn't so tough, I'll show her." Toby did show her, too. The very next morning, he climbed back up on the shelves and started prowling around. Toby's being up there must have startled one of Mother's birds because it flew off the shelf. The dumb thing couldn't fly, though, since it was made out of glass, so all it did was fall on the floor. There was a loud crash, tinkle. Toby stood real still. I ran for the safe place. Then Mother came in. She knelt down and looked at her poor dead bird. Her bottom lip quivered as she glared up at Toby. Before he could move, she grabbed him. "Meow!" he cried. All of a sudden, Mother came after me. Why, I don't know. I hadn't done anything. I've been under the couch the whole time. All the time. But she reached under anyway and grabbed me. She didn't have a good hold, so I started to crawl away. Her fingers slipped, but she caught my tail and held it firmly. She started pulling. I dug my claws into the carpet. It was no use. She just pulled harder. I couldn't hang on. "Why me?" I meowed. "Why me?" Mother didn't pay any attention. Once I was out from under the couch, she grabbed me by the back of the neck. She held Toby and me both at arm's length, took us to the back door, and threw us out. My legs went stiff. I twisted and turned and used my tail to straighten me out. and like a good cat, I landed on my feet. Toby landed next to me. He was all fuzzed up and looked rather indignant about the whole thing. The fur behind his neck was ruffled, so he gave a shake of his head. "How dare you throw me out like some scrap of garbage?" he growled. "I'll show you, I marched right over to Toby and swatted him across the head with my paw. "You won't show her anything," I growled. "This is all your fault. You stay off that shelf. If she ever lets us back in the house, you stay away from Mother's trinkets." Toby just ruffled his fur and strutted off. I arched my back way up. "I mean it, Toby. You understand?" He flipped his tail. "Well, while we're out here," he called over his shoulder, "let's go explore." I was a little frightened of the outdoors, but I followed Toby. There were all sorts of neat things to see. There was a big oak tree by the back door. There were bushes to prowl around and rub my back on. There was dirt to roll in. There was even grass. I nibbled some of it. It didn't taste good, but it felt good on my tummy. Then Toby found the hole under the wood fence. "Come on," he called, sticking his head through the hole. "I bet there's a whole new world out there. Let's go explore it too." "Wait, Toby," I yelled back. "Don't you think we should make sure there aren't any bad things out there first?" But Toby didn't listen. His tail disappeared through the crack in the fence. I poked my whiskers into the hole. They didn't even touch, so I knew it was plenty big enough to get through. Still, all I did was stick my head out the other side. I wanted to look this new world over. Finally, I went to join Toby. This new world didn't look bad at all. It was much, much, much bigger than the world in the house, and it was much, much, much bigger than the world in the backyard. Everything was open and wide and free. Surely nothing bad could live in this world, I told myself. The only trouble was something bad did live here. Butch!